It's Mail It In Friday.
The plant called and said if you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in Monday.
Woohoo! 4-day weekend.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
I do the same thing I told you that I never would. Told you I changed even when I knew I never could.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. It's quite the day here in Toronto. I'll tell you what, the Jays are probably pretty happy that the Leafs have taken over the front page, right? Like they drop another one. They drop 3 of 4. They can't hit.
Aaron
they cannot
Judge,
hit right now.
They're kind of in a weird spot, you know what I mean? Where it's not terrible, but there's not results there, and it's like one thing one day, starting pitching other than Bassett seems to be a major concern again. I don't know. Not good. Not good.
No, it's not. You mentioned Aaron Judge. He came in, love him or hate him, he came in and smacked the Blue Jays around.
Why are they throwing to that guy? Like, nobody on base, and you want to throw pizzas down the middle to that guy? Seriously, what are you doing?
It's a great question. Like, and if you're going to throw to him, like, how about not, like, right down the middle of the
Barry
plate?
Bonds treatment, down in the dirt or nothing, or just an intentional walk and go take a lap to first base. That's moronic doing that.
Make him work for it. And, like, he hit 4 home runs in the 3 wins.
Andy was pissed off, and it's like he wanted to jam the Jays up. That I couldn't believe some of those pitches. Nobody on base. You want to throw a mozzarella ball down the middle? No way.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, the one he hit off Manoah, game 1, it was right down the middle. Swanson hung a slider in game 2, I guess it was. And that was the game. That was 8th inning. Bomb, see you later. Like, these guys, it's not even like they were challenging him. They were missing pitches to Aaron Judge, and he had an attitude issue. He wasn't in the mood for anything that they were going to feed him, and he was crushing baseballs. And 4 home runs. The Yankees take 3 of 4. It's not going to get easier because Baltimore's in town. Baltimore's been playing really well. And outside of Bo Bichette, obviously Vladdy's hurt, they can't get anyone that can hit. Springer can't do anything. As good as Chapman was in April, he swung the complete opposite way in May. Alejandro Kirk can't hit a beach ball right now.
Man,
Varsho can't hit.
My buddy Paul Ross, who always tweets out, Kirk is a professional hitter. He's hardly tweeted it out at all.
No,
because every time the guy had a massive hit, he'd say, professional hitter Alejandro Kirk. Ghost on Twitter. Ghost.
Yeah. Deactivating his account right now because Kirk is not playing well.
There is some guys who are in a bad spot right now, right there with the Jays. But that's, and the Yankees have kind of gotten up off the mat.
They sure have.
They were like, this series helped them winning 3 of 4. Yep. And Judge, I don't know, Judge likes the building, obviously.
I like Boone yesterday. Boone just said, I can't wait to get the hell out of here. He had enough of P.D. Walker, man. He had enough.
It was gritty,
Walker.
Yeah, like
it was
those
a good
guys
series from that standpoint, but
it was emotional. I will say that. Like it was high event, but I would have liked to see them win more. But it certainly there was something going on every game. Like
ideally, you mix in another win or two.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're the Yankees, you don't care that Judge was staring down the first baseline or Domingo Germán had a bucket of grease on his hands or whatever he was using, because at the end of the day, you take 3 of 4 and you move on with your season, and you won't see the Jays again. Jays-Yankees won't happen again until September 19th. Mm-hmm. So it's again big homestand and a big weekend with Baltimore in town. So we'll get to that a little bit later this afternoon. But that would have been the story. Is Florida winning in 4th overtime last night, game 1 of the Western Final tonight. The Lakers are down 0-2. LeBron's flopping everywhere. Mike Malone, the head coach of the Nuggets.
That's the layup he just completely missed and bobbled it.
That was a bad miss.
Hey, I don't know about you, Mike Malone,
the head coach of the Nuggets.
Do you not like that guy? I like that guy.
I just don't. What does it matter what the national narrative? Like, it's like he needs Jokic to get all of the attention.
But I like the fact he's just a straight shooter. He's like, you know what? The narrative was all about LeBron and the Lakers, and we handed it to them. So take that. I do agree it's not the time and place to be saying we should be getting more headlines. It's about the W's and winning the series. But he just said, hey, we showed you. Nobody talks about us, and we like it that way.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And Jamal Murray said the same thing after. Like, Murray
just seems like a no BS guy, and I kind of like that about him.
I'll grant you that, and I love when people speak their mind and they're being honest. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it all the time, but I like when they say that. It's only 2 games. Like, that might come back to bite Mike Malone. The Lakers go home and win both and win the series, but hey, you're up 2-0. You're going to get your flowers, and they deserve to get their flowers. So there was a lot of different things we were waiting for today, right? Like, we got a lot of stuff to get into. Corey Connors got a 2-shot lead, the PGA Championship. And meanwhile, the news of the day is clearly Kyle Dubas is out as the GM of the Leafs. And this time last week, based on what Brendan Shanahan told us at 3 o'clock, his plan was to move forward with Dubas. Long-term deal, Kyle's still the GM, stability in the front office, and he was basing that off the job Kyle did. And he said today, post-trade deadline, that's kind of it for the GM. And he took a look at his job post-trade deadline. He said, I like what you've done. You're my guy. I want to sign long-term with you. And then Dubas's presser on Monday, which Shanahan said he advised against, which I found interesting. Shanahan made sure he told everyone he advised against Kyle speaking.
Well, I think they wanted to work out business first, don't you?
Right, which is what he said. But Kyle spoke. It was an explosive presser, wild presser. And then Kyle and his representative came back to Brendan later in the week and came over the top on financial requests and possibly more than that, possibly demands.
Let's get MJ to break it down in his version.
Okay, here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst. Johnny, it was wild here, man. It was a wild Dubas presser on Monday. It was a wild Shanahan presser today. What do you make of it all?
So, it's a little surprising in that, it's rare to see anybody, Brendan Shanahan or any organization, be that candid about sort of the transaction that was occurring. It's very easy for him to say, wishing him well, going a different direction, like his work. But he went in and, when he gave the timeline, to paraphrase, it sounded like Saturday they had essentially a contract worked out. Monday, Dubas had his presser. Wednesday, they spoke again. It seemed as though they were on the same page, and they spoke about, the challenges of the family. And then Thursday, Dubas says, I want the GM job, and then asked for other stuff, whether it's money or responsibility or power, whatever however you want to phrase it. And then Shanny at that point is like, I'm not so sure. Again, I don't know if that was irritation about we thought we had a deal, now you're coming asking for more, or if it was more, as he said, I took time to reflect, and I then decided I'd go in a different way because Kyle Dubas opened the door about needing to reflect about where we could go here. But it was interesting, and I almost respect, that Brendan Shanahan was willing to come out and sort of be that candid about stuff we don't always hear about and kind of how it went down. But it doesn't feel like it was it was very respectful, it was very polite, but it doesn't feel like it was obviously that amicable, because if Kyle wanted to come back in the end, which I think he said on Thursday, if I had the timeline right.
Yeah, the email.
And Shanny said on Saturday prior to that Thursday, so 4 days prior, they essentially had the framework of a deal done to bring him back as the GM. What happened in 12 hours? That here we are on Friday, and he's not the GM. Seems like that. If it was all amicable, it was all totally fine, they would have worked through whatever stuff was going on. But they didn't. So it tells me that something changed there. Whether it was Shanny just feeling different, or whether it was irritation about the new demands, whatever those may have been, financial included, something changed there that kind of led Brendan Shanahan in this direction.
Johnny, what do you make of there was a new financial package, and then the following comment was the conversation was brief? Don't you think that was the end game? Things might have started changing in Shanny's mind, and then this new financial package. What got my attention was the following comment, which was the conversation was very brief. That means something was presented to him, and he said, not a chance in hell.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly right. Something changed when they made that other offer. And I have no idea how much money Kyle Dubas makes. I think the highest paid GMs are around $5-6 million, something like that. Did they agree on a deal for $4 million? And he came and said, I actually want $8 million. And he's like, well, get out of town. It's not going to happen. We just had a deal. What are you talking about? That without knowing what the actual numbers are, feels like that was sort of the reaction that Brendan Shanahan had, because he already acknowledged he wanted him back at the number they thought he figured out. And so somehow the new offer and the fact that it was a brief conversation there tells you that Brendan Shanahan wasn't feeling the new request at all.
That's where we were talking about earlier, Johnny, as far as, I don't think it was like they were $100,000 different. You can when you're negotiating, you can always come back with a final like, hey, let's round it up here and get this done type of thing. Like, it seemed like they both wanted to get it done at one point or at some point as recent as a couple days ago. But then I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this. I think Kyle Dubas overplayed his hand here, and Brendan Shanahan said, "Fine, that's enough. Like, that's it. I'm heading a different direction." Now I'm dumbing that down, but that's all I'm getting out of. Again, we're only getting one side of the story, but that's what I'm getting out of how it was laid out here. From, hey, I want to chat with my family on Monday. That's Kyle Dubas, and then Brendan Shanahan saying, "Well, there was a financial package with a gap, a big gap had arisen." So basically, it's like, hey, we've tacked on a significant amount of money here because we think we might have some leverage. Like, is it as simple as maybe Kyle Dubas overplayed his hand?
Well, if he wanted to get back to Toronto, yeah, clearly. And
yes.
maybe the conversation for Kyle and his family was, hey, listen, this is a grind, and this is hard. It's hard on you. It's hard on us. Like, it better be worth your while. If you can make, again, I'm making up numbers. I have no idea. Let's say he kind of talked with Brendan Shanahan at $4 million a year. And the family said, listen, you can make $4 million working for Pittsburgh next week. If we're going to deal with the grind and the stress and the scrutiny, you need to be compensated more than that. And so he, maybe he came back and said, listen, I need $6. Like, it's not millions of dollars. This is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Brendan Shanahan wants $200,000 a year more for a GM. Like, of course it's going to get done in a blink. Like, they don't care at all about that. They care, but they're not going to let a deal fall apart for that amount of money. But the thing is, like, maybe Kyle's like, listen, it's got to be on my terms at a big number, or it's not worth it to me. So I don't know if overplaying his hand, like, maybe it just was his hand and he was okay. I'm going to get exactly what I want, or I'm not going to, or it's going to fall apart. And that's okay with me because I, don't want to do the job for less, or I can go elsewhere and make the same, or whatever his thought process might be. But yeah, he clearly came in over the top, and I can see how that would, like, if you're negotiating for anything, guys, for, you have a deal on your new car, we're going to pay $20,000 for it. The guy's like, actually, your brother signed the paper. He says, actually, you know what? It's 27 now. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, how that could turn a deal sour, even after 10 years of working together. It feels like that, something like that happened.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, what about the comment Kyle made in his presser saying, you're not going to see me pop up somewhere? Do you think that holds true now? He said he wanted to be the GM of the Leafs, and he said, you're not going to see me pop up somewhere. Guy's got to work, doesn't he?
Well, he doesn't have to. He's making $2 or $3 million a year, but he probably wants to. And I'm with you, though. I think you're like, this doesn't feel like a super amicable parting of the ways. It doesn't. It feels as though, let's say Kyle said that, and he said it with good intentions, and he meant it honestly. But now he's like, hang on, like, Brendan just aired out our timeline, not our dirty laundry, but kind of, it makes me look like I reneged on a deal I thought I basically agreed to and asked for more money. Like, but, I don't love that look for Kyle Dubas if I'm Kyle Dubas. And so maybe we'll revisit that, say, well, hang on, like, maybe I will go elsewhere and get to work right away. So I think that might be, and without, I'm not accusing him of backtrack on his words. Like, things change, opinions change, feelings change. And I bet Kyle Dubas' feelings towards Shanahan and the Leafs are different today after that presser than they were yesterday when they were talking about trying to get a new deal done.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, yeah, I'm not sure it was as much overplaying his hand as you just pointed out. He was willing to lose it, right? Because if there was something in there, also, like, it could be as simple as, this is it, and I'm not negotiating anymore. Then that means you're not overplaying your hand. Because if you're overplaying your hand, you might go over the top and say, all right, never mind. Right? Like, I really want to be here. Like, if you go in hard, you might be risking losing it. And if that's the case, Shanahan had to sniff it out. And Shanahan had to move on, because you can't have someone that's going to take advantage of you or someone that doesn't really want the job. But at the end of the day, Shanahan thought the right guy for the job was Dubas. So now what? Like that, a week ago, this is the guy he thought could win a Stanley Cup as the GM. By all accounts, based on what he's... But that's what's wild, Johnny, is by all accounts, Brendan Shanahan has not been spending the last year preparing for life without Kyle Dubas, which to me is really difficult to stomach. Like, I wonder if the owners are going to go to him and say, why is there not a plan B? And maybe there is, and he didn't reveal it.
Well,
if you're the president of the team, you better have plan B, C, D, E, F. Like, what else are you doing?
Didn't this just pop up this week? Like, I don't believe that he projected this to be happening.
Obviously, but you're dealing with people, and you pushed Dubas into a position where he was a lame duck GM. There was always a chance Dubas was going to say, I'm out of here.
I get it, but the idea of a plan B, C, and D, how are you even thinking? You're not thinking you're going down this road, so that wouldn't be in play right now.
But isn't that your job to be prepared?
It is, but I think, Brian, it's on a whiteboard somewhere. Plan B, Plan C, because he might have had a plan that if they lost in the first round and it didn't go so well, he might have had a different plan. Like, to me, they have multiple plans laid out and might have put feelers out back channels, because you can't tamper. But the point being is as of what you were saying, and I don't disagree, as of Monday morning, Kyle Dubas was the guy for Brendan Shanahan. But you always have contingency plans on the back burner, keeping an eye on a guy, this guy might be leaving there. This guy might be available. You do that all the time, especially in sports business. That player might be available a year from now, might look good. That manager's deal is up in a bit. Like, that coach. Like, I think there is a plan B, C, and D, but he was just forced to start to look into that because of what transpired on Monday and further.
Wow.
Yeah, Hayes, I think the one thing, though, like I'm with the guys. Like, I think this kind of crept up. But whether he had a plan B or C, I'm sure, he thought about different ideas. But I think the more telling story, and I think it may be worth getting, fleshing out further from Brendan Shanahan, is that at some point from the trade deadline on, which is essentially when the GM's job is done, right? You can't do anything else after that anyways. He did do some sort of thorough evaluation. He did think about the job that Kyle Dubas did, and he determined, including the playoffs, he is the guy that I want back to put this team over the top, lead this team into the future, and to a Stanley Cup. And that, to me, is it's not an indictment. Kyle Dubas is an excellent GM. I've been on board saying that for a long, long time. The way this team has performed in the regular season is better than any 5-year stretch in the history of this franchise. So it's not like he didn't do a good job, but the fact of the matter is the guy, he looked through his situation and came to the determination that this is the guy for me, and now he doesn't have that guy. Yeah. So where does that lead you? You're going to hire someone who a week ago you did not think was better for the job than the guy you just let go, right? I mean, that's essentially what he's going to do. And now maybe there's somebody new that didn't, but you didn't get the guy you wanted. So I know what's changed and why he's not here, but as far as like the vision of running the franchise and how things are going to work, well, where are you going now? Because you had your guy and now you don't.
Yeah. And that's what's at stake here.
But don't you think there is a level where you take it or leave it too? Like, at some point you go, it's too far, and it's not like they won together. Like, change was going to happen somehow with this organization, because, yes, they did get to the second round, but that's not the goal. And it has been a long time.
Hasn't been the goal for 4 years, Jamie.
Well, I understand that. But
I think both things are right. Don't get me wrong. I think based on what Shanahan detailed today, now that's not the other side of the coin. Dubas may have a very different description. But based on what Shanahan detailed today, I can make total sense of that. And I actually appreciate it. If a guy doesn't really want to be here, or if a guy's trying to take advantage of you for whatever reason, you got to move on. And as I've said countless times, that better start applying to the players next, if that's the new philosophy of this team. Because Dubas may have just looked at it, like we said, Well, Willie did it. They gave it to him. Mitch did it.
Right.
Austin did it, so I'm going to do it. Why stop at me? Like, he may be sitting there saying, why am I the guy you don't give everything to? Give everything to them, and now Shanahan possibly is putting forth a new philosophy here. So I don't disagree with getting to that conclusion, but it also comes with the understanding that a week ago Dubas was the guy, and now he's not because of a press conference and some negotiating tactics. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, and Shanahan's a prideful, smart. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to feel like he's getting bullied into, you know what I mean, in a negotiation. Like, we had a deal on Saturday.
Right.
The framework of the final deal was done, and then you're going to come over the top and ask for enough that it was a short conversation, a tangible difference. Like, I think that can be true, but there's a lot to unpack. But I'm also curious, like, there's so much that has to flow from this. In that, obviously new GM, direction of the team. But I think there's something to be said, like, and I respect Kyle for this. Like, he was a modern manager. He empowered the players. He treated them well. He fostered an environment of understanding and a lot of good things. I don't know if the players ever really, like the top players, do you think they ever really worried about getting traded after one of these seasons?
I don't
Probably
think so,
not.
Johnny.
Not really, right?
At the end of the day, big picture, pal, we talked about it earlier. When you look at the results of the team they had in place and the expectations and the things that they wanted to get done, it's been quite a while, and they won one round. So nobody should be surprised that there's going to be a different set of eyes on that. How we got there's all kinds of interesting takes and all little things that we can break down. But big picture, one round in a long time. No one should be surprised that there's going to be a different set of eyes looking at that. And that's the bottom line.
But what do you guys think will be the mandate for the next GM? Like, it can't possibly be blow it up and restart. Like, that.
No.
They're not doing that, and that'd be silly. So,
Brian, it's fresh eyes. It's sometimes, and I've seen it, and I've seen people that are running hockey teams. You fall in love with what you're doing. You have these great ideas, and the problem with it is you fall in love with your own ideas, sometimes ignoring the lack of success. So how could you continue to be in love with it? A fresh set of eyes saying, this idea you have here, it's got to change. It's not working, and everyone in hockey knows it, and you guys don't seem to. So different eyes and a different set of beliefs, and someone just looking saying, what you guys have been doing there with that position or that player, can't happen. Got to stop. Got to move it. Got to get out of it, or else it's never going to work.
Well,
so there you go.
It's a great point, and you know who would really benefit from that? Brendan Shanahan, because he's been in there the whole time too. Someone coming in that's bold enough to say, "Listen, I know what you've been doing here, and it's been great, but this can't continue."
Yeah, someone that's been around the block, had success in the past, and understands. But Shanny's that too. Shanny's got it done 3 times with the Detroit Red Wings, but from a management position, different eyes on it and say, that right there, got to change.
But you got to treat it like a business, though. That's the thing. You're right. Like, you get attached. You fall in love with players. You fall in love with ideas and stuff, but you have to be able to adapt. That's why we gave flowers to Kyle at the deadline. It does seem like he adapted his thought process. He changed 6 guys on the roster. He went from a regular season team to a more hardened playoff-looking team. You have to be able to change and adapt. But there is, from the outside, again, there's people that's a country club atmosphere where.
So does this affect the players then, Noodles? Like, all three,
so.
You can answer this. Do you think the players are sitting there saying, "Uh-oh"?
I can only speak for myself. I can only speak for myself, Hayes. Any type of coach, general manager, you give them a call and say thanks for everything, and you have the same mentality. It's like, unless you're traded or unless things are going to be different for you. I mean, I knew it was going to be different for me because Peter Laviolette came into Carolina, and my roommate became the assistant coach, and he called me up and he warned me that he hated my guts and he thinks I'm lazy. I knew things were going to be different.
But that's the coach, not the GM, though, right?
I get it. GM, it's like, unless you're getting called up to his office 3 times a week, you're doing your thing, man.
Johnny,
you know what I mean?
You don't talk to the GM that much. I mean, maybe it's different now. Maybe the big stars have a bigger say. But, like, you don't, other than your contract stuff, you don't talk to the GM that much. But I think the biggest impact the GM will have is he's got to deal with the coach. I think that would be the next thing that flows from a new GM. Does he decide that this coach should return or should not return? And that will impact the players. But I do think this is like the first Freddie Anderson leaving, I get, but this is the first like very significant change that these guys have experienced where someone that they're used to working with, and Kyle Dubas is probably a little bit more present than some other GMs, he's no longer there. Yeah. Something has happened because of now. It's not really because they didn't win, because apparently they tried to hire him to an extension this weekend.
Right.
So it's not like it really was a function of him losing in the playoffs, but it's still a little bit unsettling. Like, hang on, the group that we sort of believed, we just keep running it back. We'll finally get the breaks. We'll finally get it done. We'll finally figure it out. We'll finally do it. Well, that's not the case anymore, and that may be a bit unsettling. But I guess all the players will be either on the phone with their agents or maybe even right to Shanny, and paying very close attention to what the new GM or who the new GM is and what he says about the direction of this franchise and the most important players in it, because he doesn't have the pre-existing relationships. He's not tied to William Nylander being excellent. He's not tied to Morgan Rielly because he hasn't. If he comes from outside the organization, he doesn't have any pass with those guys. He can make whatever ruthless decisions, and it won't reflect on him because he's not part of having those guys here to begin with. And that's the sort of stuff that starts jumping around guys' minds when a GM gets changed.
I know, Johnny. Say you're at the Worlds right now. Say Shanny all of a sudden goes, "I'm going to hire the GM of Kazakhstan." Like, just something crazy. Like, that would it'd just be bedlam, would it not?
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know where. Shanny is a smart guy, and this is a unique market. And I don't know who the GM candidates are. I know Brad Treliving just lost his job, but I don't know who the hot. You hear about some of the names for the Pittsburgh job, but whatever that GM's vision of how they play, that to me is how does that new guy think a team needs to be built to win a Stanley Cup, and how does that apply to the team and the players he has in front of him? That's the next stage to me. That is the next part of this conversation, because it could be wildly different, drastically different, and if it is, then the team becomes different, and that's the thing on the ice and the players, and that's where we want to get to.
Yeah, that's what makes it so confounding. Like the idea that Dubas had done a good enough job for Shanahan to want him back. So if you go in there, are you trying to channel what Kyle Dubas would be pitching Shanahan?
I think no now.
I guess not. I mean, you got to be the other way person. Really?
I think you got to go the.
Shanahan didn't fire him because of results. Fired him because of a press conference and negotiation.
Well,
that's why he fired him or let him go. I
understand that, but do you think that the way that they play in the regular season, they need a style change of play because it's obviously not working.
Different eyes, Jamie. Different eyes.
But he didn't think that's go back to Hayes' point. The wild part is I'm not disagreeing with you at all. And different eyes, 100%.
Right.
But Shanny a week ago did not think that. He thought business as usual. Re-rack it. Let's see where we're at. So
Johnny, different eyes. Different eyes in a big vat, a big barrel of truth serum. If you think that decor can win, if you think that goaltending can hold up. Sometimes you need to hear it, man. I don't care who you are in the league. We've seen experience, some of the best GMs, understandably make mistakes where it's this just can't happen.
Well,
and anything in life, my old man told me this, you screw up in business, anything, you got to fix it. No, there's no other way around it. There's no sense of talking yourself into making it work or it can work. You fix it ASAP.
Yep.
Well,
if you know how.
That's
it.
You
know how.
And
there's always a way how, Mike. You know that.
What if that truth serum is something Shanahan doesn't want to hear?
Well, but part of it, is you wonder, Kyle, did Kyle know how to fix it? He's been here 7 years. He's tried a whole bunch of different things. And that's part of getting a new person in there. Maybe he's kind of, ran his course of ideas. I don't know. If there was any brilliant plan to change or fix things, he would have implemented it already. So which we can talk about in the context he got fired, but he didn't really get fired. He got hired,
exactly,
and then asked for more money, and then was not. They didn't come to a contract. Is more the way to put it. Then he got fired. So,
right.
But I think like net, not that losing Kyle is a good thing, but having a different pair of eyes, to use O's expression, is not a bad thing for this team right now.
Well, and there's still a perennial playoff team with a lot of talent, and it's a coveted job. It should be a coveted job. And whoever comes in next, it's not like you're coming off someone who just won 2 cups or 3 cups, or you're coming off a competent, good GM, likable guy. But it could get worse. Absolutely, it could get worse, but it could get better too, right? And it's imperative that Shanahan and the Leafs find that person to do that. All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there, man. Have a great weekend over there.
Have a good weekend. Enjoy the golf.
Take care of Gord.
Yes.
Let's see. We'll take care of Gord. Keep him on the straight and narrow for sure.
All right, buddy. Thank you for this.
All right, guys. Cheers.
Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. And that's it. Like when you get major change, there's uncertainty. There's going to be some nerves. But
what if Matthews loves Kyle Dubas?
Listen, that probably there's truth in that. Like, why wouldn't he love Kyle Dubas? No. Dubas has treated him very well, gave him the contract he wanted. These guys are treated like kings, as they should be. Like, if you're a first-class organization, you should treat people well. And I think Dubas did a great job in establishing that. And I think that should be imperative, whoever the new GM continues that. But I find it, again, it gets back to kind of what we've been talking all week. This does let the players off the hook, which should not be the case. It wasn't Dubas that couldn't get it done against Florida. It was the players.
Yeah.
But if you want to be here, then you can be here, right? But if you just want to be here because Kyle's here, that doesn't make any sense.
No, but what I'm saying, I'm saying, like, if Kyle and Austin had talked about, the future and a contract and all of that, like, that has to start over with somebody that comes in, unless Brendan Shanahan does that or Brandon Pridham. Like, they might have had the framework of something in place already. But Austin Matthews is going to ask the question, where's the vision of this organization going for the next? If I'm signing for 5 years, what's it going to look like?
Yep.
And what's the vision of the new manager? Because I guarantee the new manager is not going to keep these. Like, he might not keep that core 4 together. He might say that needs to change immediately.
Well, that's what I was kind of suggesting. Like, Shanahan may not hear what he wants to hear with Drew Surum. Like, he's as connected to those guys as anyone else.
Sure.
Right? They're stars. They sell a lot of jerseys and tickets, and people love watching them play.
Yeah.
The True Serum guy may come in and say, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. You will never win a Stanley Cup with 34-16. End of discussion. What does he do? Does he say, get out the door, I don't want to hear that? Or does he buy it and say, here's a contract, come do it?
Well,
I don't know.
You got to listen to everybody.
Find out, Hazy B.
We sure will.
We're going to find out on Tuesday what you got cooking at Coppenwood, too, because you're up at your course.
You think so?
Oh.
I don't know about that. I don't know. It's not a good place. I got to channel my inner Corey Connors, who is 6 under through 14.
Dude, for the day? No, just total.
He's 3 under for the day, 6 over total for the tournament.
Wow.
And he's
leading.
solo lead. But Scheffler's right behind him. Victor Hovland right behind him.
Might be Tommy Kim, though. You never know.
Yeah, Tom Kim. I don't know where Tom Kim actually is on the leaderboard.
Dude, maybe he hits his shots so butter, Connors. He just maybe gets it done, man.
He missed a couple of short birdie putts too. Like he's
don't tell me that.
I shouldn't say
gets
short,
me scared for the weekend.
7-footers, 8-footers. Yeah, like a chance to really push ahead that much more. He's got to close on that. He has to. All right, Darren Dreger's still to come. Dear Hazy B in about an hour. Jays Orioles tonight. We're tracking the PGA. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Yes, he's a 360.
All right, Mail It In Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza's new playoff menu developed using Fanalytics. BP's run the numbers to craft the perfect playoff menu, which includes our winged ribs, the new league leader in wings above replacement. Visit BP for puck drop tonight.
Whoa. I'm all over it.
Yes, got to be.
Just
Friday night, mandatory.
Working over a piece here in the break.
Yeah, mandatory Boston Pizza. And, we got a game tonight. We got Jays back in action. NBA playoffs continue. And I'm curious, when we're going to hear from Shanahan again and the Leafs again. Obviously, they're going to start the process looking for a new GM. I wonder what Sheldon Keefe is thinking right now. Like, he's so tied to the hip of Kyle Dubas.
No kidding. You wonder what his standing is now.
Right.
There has to be a level of concern. That's got to be next week. We might have to play that because.
But Hayes, I didn't hear it. But did you not say off the top that Keefe is staying? That was not
he's
announced.
Still employed.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah, he's still. He didn't. Shanahan didn't give him a vote of confidence. That he's
I thought
back.
I had heard you say Keefe is staying, Dubas is out. No.
Just Dubas is officially out, and again, that speaks to I think the timeline of the week. That this wasn't like a full evaluation of all of the jobs they've done, because if it was and Dubas was going, I feel like they'd probably move on the coach as well, and I think they need to be respectful of Keefe if it's going to get to a point where they're going in a different direction. Give him an opportunity to go look for another job.
Yeah, there is vacancies out there.
Yeah,
exactly.
They need to show some respect to him, and if he's coming back, so be it. But I don't think it's fair to say, well, we'll let the next It's fair is not the right word because it's pro sports, it's business. He's still getting paid. He's under contract. That's the way it works. But the idea that the next GM is going to come in, do a full evaluation, and then let him go in a month, 2 months.
No, that's garbage.
That shouldn't happen.
No, I think it's part of the hiring process. Like I would think if you're hiring a new manager, the manager is selling you on the vision that he has. And part of that is we've got a coach in place. What would you do there?
Right.
And then you go, okay, I'm hiring this manager. Okay, we're going to let the coach go right away because that's not his guy. The new manager might come in with a coach already in mind or somebody that he wants to get to, whose contract is expiring. There's a lot of moving parts. Here's the other thing too. And I think we should ask Dregs this. He might, insiders might be able to fish around on this. Brendan Shanahan would have had to sell to the board, this guy's asked for whatever. There's a big gap in money. I'm going to move away from him. Mm-hmm. And they might go, well, what's your plan? I don't think he's just shooting from the hip. You're going to have to sell to the board. I'm moving away from the guy that I actually was going to sign on Monday or on Wednesday or on Thursday, whatever we believed it was this week. And I'm sure the board just believes in Brendan Shanahan, but I'm sure they would want some form of a plan laid out or framework of it.
I'm
would
sure,
you not?
I'm sure that would happen, but I don't know if you can give names in terms of this wasn't this isn't a replacement where this person's available, so this is who we're bringing in, right? Or even someone internally. Hey, we're going to lose Brandon Pridham. We don't want to lose him, so he's going to get the job, and we're moving on from Kyle. Or we believe Jason Spezza is ready for the job, or whatever. Doesn't seem to be that case. Yes, I'm sure, like Shanahan said, he's got bosses, owners. They have to sign off on everything.
Right.
And it's not that they're paying Dubas to leave because his deal is expiring, but still, it's a big vacancy. It's a big hole within the organization that the GM, who everyone's aware of, everyone knows Kyle Dubas, what he represents, is no longer going to be a part of Shanahan's plan moving forward. But what could come with that is obviously a new GM. That'll be the fourth of the Shanahan era, and likely a new coach, which I guess would be the fourth coach of the Shanahan era. And I think it's imperative, Brendan, for whatever happened and how it got to this point, now you got to find a new GM, likely find a new coach, figure out what you're going to do in free agency because there's a lot of openings and a lot of money available. And what are you going to do with those four players that have been the marquee of your team for a long time?
Yep.
That's heavy lifting. And Dubas is not a part of it. So it doesn't change what we've been saying all week, that the next 6 weeks are the most important, 6-week run, 2-month run of the last 7, 8, 10 years here in Toronto. Still the case, regardless of who's making the calls. They don't get time to just reset or evaluate things.
I do agree with you, Brian. It is heavy lifting, but everybody knows everything about the NHL. I'm talking with executive types. They keep eyes on everything. You talk about a guy like Brad Treliving. You don't think that he would be prepped to know and execute a plan and talk about a plan? Like, they all know what the hell's going on, right?
Yeah, right. And now, by all accounts, Calgary's not allowing him to speak with teams until his contract expires at the end of June.
That's garbage too. I don't know why an organization would ever do that. You agree to part ways and then you don't let somebody speak to someone else. That's nonsense.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is there, but it's agreed. If he's going to move on or has moved on,
agreed to part ways. But it's like.
But if
that might take him out of the job though here.
But I'm just saying, what if
I would guess
if he's your guy, if you believe he can be your guy, I still think that this organization is not going to crumble in 6 weeks. You have. This is the biggest front office in the history of pro sports. It seems like there's AGMs left and right. There's sports science. It's not going to crumble.
Why not simplify some of that stuff too? Like Kyle's not around anymore, Jamie. And you look at an organization like Carolina, they don't have 14 assistant GMs.
Well,
they don't have it. They don't have all the bells and whistles. So
the new GM will put in place who he wants. He's going to inherit a bunch of people, and he'll probably wade through who he wants to stay and who he wants to part ways with. Not a news dump, but it sounds like Brendan Shanahan parted ways with the coaches of the Marlies.
Yep.
Did you see that today, right? Like that. So there is change coming. And lost in all of this, too, is Brendan Shanahan is a capable executive. Like, if it's him with his hands on the wheel for the next little bit until he, finds somebody to put in place. Brian, you just said 9 years. This guy's fingerprints are all over it. Well, Brendan Shanahan probably has to roll his sleeves up and go, until I get my next guy in, I'm going to be involved in the day-to-day operations of this business.
And that's reasonable. You're right. Listen, if you have someone in mind now, if you're Shanahan and company, that you believe is the right person to get the job done, but that person can't show up until July 15th or August 1st, obviously it's worthy of waiting, because you're talking about a 5-year employment, 10-year employment. You're talking about a big picture plan and an architect of the team. But again, using Treliving, if that stands, if Calgary continues with this policy that he can't speak with anyone until effectively July 1st, well, you know what would coincide with him even being able to speak with the Leafs is the no trade, no move kicking in for Matthews, for Marner.
And Marner, yeah.
Right? And yes, Shanahan and company, Pridham, all these people, they can work that out and then fill him in if you can't even speak to him, you're not going to hire him on July 1st.
Right.
Maybe if they were to call in Treliving and sit down with him, maybe they don't see eye to eye and it doesn't work out. If there's someone else available, then you're going to go down that road. And it would suck for anyone in the position of Treliving who can't even get a meeting. But that's the nature of the beast right now. Yeah. And as for other veteran GMs that are out there, I can't give you that answer. I don't know who that would be. Doug Wilson, is he looking to get back in the game?
Well, he stepped away for health reasons. I believe he's kind of back
in San Jose. Yeah.
Stan Bowman's name it's all the list of candidates that were in on Pittsburgh's job has been whispered about with Calgary. Really, how many manager positions are there now in the National Hockey League up for grabs? 3? Pittsburgh, Calgary, and Toronto, correct? No. So the whispers of the names that have interviewed here, interviewed there for coaching positions, for GM positions. You're right. Who is a guy that has run an organization that has either won a Stanley Cup or had success and been a good guy, progressive, all of that is just sitting there waiting to be hired?
I don't know.
There's just not
exactly.
The pool doesn't run that deep.
That's right. And that's the whole point, and that's the position they found themselves in now. And that's probably why they were so comfortable with Kyle. Kyle, yes, he was a veteran of Toronto, but still, he's 5 years on the job. He's a veteran. He knows how the league works, and now he's out. Dregs will join us. Darren Dreger coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. Dear Hazy Beasto to come. Jay's back in action at home against Baltimore. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Well, the news keeps coming here on the Maple Leaf side of things. Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider, I guess, reaching out to Jason Spezza, and I guess Spezza announcing that he's out, and he tendered his resignation. Am I reading that correctly?
Yep.
Sounds like it. And he and Kyle Dubas, right? He was the special assistant to Kyle Dubas, and yeah, I guess he tendered his resignation today. So after hearing that Dubas would not be back, I don't know what that means. Like,
who knows? He might have had enough of it and just wants to golf. Who knows? There's so many questions about that as well.
Right, exactly.
Right?
He just got out of the league. Like, it sounds like he wants to be involved, and
right.
And I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to speculate on how it got to that point. But you're right. He's got young kids, a young family. He's been in the rinks forever. If he wants to get back involved in the game in some capacity, obviously he'll be able to find a way to do that.
Yeah, name that's been floated. I've been hearing this. He's been here before. I don't know if he had a great track record, JFJ.
Yeah.
We'll see if he.
I've heard his name is. He may have already been flying in. I think we should track the MLSE bird. Possibly going to pick up John Ferguson Jr. Wouldn't that be a great comeback story?
Wouldn't that be?
If there was viz of JFJ on a private bird, like in the air,
yeah,
I would pack a bag and you guys would never hear from me again.
Yeah, it'd be a wild scene, man. I cannot confirm or deny that I'm flying in to take over the reins, and I'm back, baby.
Yeah. What if he had a Twitter account? I'm back, baby.
Right. Just like MJ when he returned. I'm back.
Exactly.
From the desk of John Ferguson Jr., I'm back. I hope it happens.
Me too.
It'd be a wild scene, man.
It would be a wild scene.
It would be a
Saying
wild
there's
scene.
a chance. Saying there's a chance.
A wild scene. So there you go. Spezza's out. This is a weird vibe down there with the Leafs, man. Like, it is a different vibe.
It's chaos. That's what it is. Let's just call it what it is. It's chaos right now.
Like, it sounds like it was chaotic down at locker room clean out. Like, it just didn't feel like there was any sense of, structure. And now you got the Dubas thing hanging over. And now Dubas is out. Now Spezza's leaving. The Marlies coaches are out. It's like, man, 2.5 weeks ago, they finally won a round.
Yeah.
Final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.